When I saw this headline, I kind of laughed, and I said, oh, this is so ridiculous. Yet another person claiming it's racist to have a white Santa, you know? And by the way, for all you kids watching at home, Santa just is white. Just because it makes you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean it has to change. You know, I mean, Jesus was a white man too, but you know, it's like, he was a historical figure. I mean, that's a verifiable fact, as is Santa. I just want the kids watching to know that.
Couldn't have been spoken better by four white people sitting there. Welcome back to The Ed Show. Fox News host Megyn Kelly made some news on her own last week when she insisted Santa Claus and Jesus were white. On Friday, Kelly responded to the uproar. Here it is in part.
Humor is a part of what we try to bring to this show, but sometimes that is lost on the humorless. Well, this would be funny if it were not so telling about our society, in particular the knee-jerk instinct by so many to race bait and to assume the worst in people, especially people employed by the very powerful Fox News channel. By the way, I also did say Jesus was white. As I've learned in the past 2 days, that is far from settled. Race is still an incredibly volatile issue in this country, and Fox News and yours truly are big targets for many people.
Well, let's break this down. According to Kelly, it's all a joke. If you were offended, it's because you are a humorless race baiter. Powerful Fox News is the real victim in all this. Kelly also speaks as if she just discovered race is still a volatile issue in this country and a very heated discussion at times. She must not watch her own network. Let's be clear, challenging racism, racial stereotypes, or so-called racial norms is not race baiting. It is important, even in the world of fictional characters, to challenge ourselves in the conversation on race. This is supposed to be a season of good feelings and goodwill. And how can our heart be in the right place and in the spirit of the season if we're making all this about one skin color or another? On Friday, Kelly offered no real apology for her comments. In typical Fox News fashion, the knee-jerk response is to point fingers by blaming political correctness and playing the victim. Joining me now on our rapid response panel, the Griot contributor, Zerlina Maxwell, and also Josh Marshall, founder and editor of Talking Points Memo. Great to have both of you with us. Well, I guess there has to be a judgment here made by all of us individually or anybody watching as to whether it was a joke or not. Right. Zerlina?
Well, I mean, watching it, I definitely wasn't a scripted moment. It was an offhand comment. I don't know that I think that it was a joke, but I think that, you know, the larger conversation is really what's important. It is important that we talk about sort of our cultural and traditional symbols and why she was insisting that they be white and why changing that made, you know, her and many folks uncomfortable. The root of that is actually very problematic. I think that children should be able to imagine Santa Claus whatever color they want him to be.
Well, it was off a story that a black woman wrote explaining her feelings growing up.
Right.
I would have to say that her feelings were discarded by the anchor. That's how I took it.
And you know, I agreed with that sentiment because I grew up in an all-white town and had a black Santa because my mom prioritized having those cultural and traditional symbols be something that looks like me. I think that that was really important for my parents and my self-esteem growing up. And I think that, you know, maybe the majority race doesn't necessarily understand that everything we see, if you go into a Barnes & Noble and look at magazines, it's all white faces. And how that feels when you're growing up and you don't see things that reflect what you look like. Josh,
your insights on this story, your thoughts?
You know, I don't think it was a joke. I think it was in a way sort of an offhanded comment, but I think what was revealing about it is, you know, when you and I were growing up, it was a lot whiter country. It just was. And I think a lot of people, I don't know, Megyn Kelly, but certainly a lot of Americans, that's a little uncomfortable. You look around, you don't see quite, you know, in percentage terms, quite as many white faces. And so I just see this as sort of an offhanded sort of outgrowth of that. Well, you say, like, you know, I don't see as many white people, but Santa is white. I'm holding on to Santa. You're not going to make Santa not be white for me. So, you know, I mean, we have to remember here, Santa's not real. Right. So this grounds the conversation at a certain level. But again, to me, it's that it's not, you know, racist is too strong. It's just, it's there is a big slice of white America that is not comfortable that America doesn't look exactly the way it did 30 years ago.